I'm so not ready for this. Just not our life to do videos. So I read a book. It doesn't happen that often, at least one that's not a children's book. But I wanted to do a book review on it and inevitably give my own personal perspective, as that's kind of unavoidable. The Anarchist's Tool Chest by Christopher Schwarz. I took some notes here, and I'm probably going to read them so that I can stay on track. Let's take a look at some quotes here to help us understand. Toilet paper bookmarks. Tells you something about me. On page 10, he says, I chose the title of this book with care. It wasn't the decision of some cynical marketing department. The anarchist in the title is me. I dislike that word quite a bit, but it is the right one. On page 11, he says, the mere act of owning real tools and having the power to use them is a radical and rare idea that can help change the world around us. It intrigued me. It sounds like me. Further on, getting more into that idea of anarchy, he says on page 24, instead, anarchism is the realization that all large institutions, governments, corporations, and churches have divided up the tasks we do in our job to the point where these institutions do wasteful, dehumanizing, and stupid things. Eunice Minette Schuster states in the book Native American Anarchism that American aesthetic anarchy is, quote, the isolation of the individual, his right to own his own tools, his mind, his body, and to the products of his labor. It's a desire to work for yourself and to run in social and economic circles made up of other individual artisans. That appealed to me, got my wheels turning. And in addition to just a book review, it made me think, how am I an anarchist? So I started just making little notes every time I thought of something. And at the end of this video, we'll share those different ways that we're anarchists. And Heidi's here as a means to keep me clear, because I know my thoughts and ideas get out there a bit. All right, so what's in a name? Schwarz's book is summed up in the title. He explains what an anarchist is and makes a case for how most woodworkers are anarchists. Then he shows you how and why to become an anarchist through the experience of making a chest with the tools it was made to contain. Cool idea. For those of you looking to buy the book, I would say if you're at the point of wanting to read a book like this, you probably know a decent amount about tool selection and things like that. But it's witty enough, and it builds kind of some camaraderie with somebody else who's thinking like you are. So it's still a worthwhile buy and a worthwhile read. All right, let's go to page 24. Nope. Well, yeah, okay. I did read some on 24. So, if an anarchist's desire is to live in a world of helpful, hardworking peers, then that lines up with Scripture, and that's pretty much the goal of my life, to line the actions of my life up with God's Word. In Matthew 23:8, he says, but you are not to be called rabbi, for you have one teacher, and you're all brothers. And call no man your father on earth, for you have one Father who is in heaven. Neither be called instructors, for you have one instructor, the Christ, or the chosen one. The greatest among you shall be your servant. Whoever exalts himself will be humbled, and whoever humbles himself will be exalted. I think that's kind of what Schwarz is getting at in this idea that you yourself humble yourself to do the hard-working tasks with your hands to serve other people. You don't humble them to serve you, and you don't allow them to humble you to serve them. But of your own goodwill, and I would say, out of a Christ-like, wanting to be like Jesus, you do those things, that makes the world as good as it gets. I wrote, as we are peers, because we are independently able to know and learn from God, so we should be independently able to care for ourselves and serve others. It's not about being independently disconnected, but about being rightly connected. In page 458, Schwarz sums up his book by talking about the decline of artisans in our world. Let's go there. 458. He says, and those declining numbers are the overarching reason I wrote the Anarchist tool chest. Yeah, I know it's arguable that this book is a belly-button gazing text about how handcraft is in decline and cue the whining and hand-wringing. But the truth is, I don't give a crap about personal self-actualization. I don't care if you find peace in your smoothing plane. I don't care if you find your power animal. What I care about is the craft of woodworking, which is closer to extinction now than at any other time in the history of the human race. How do we save it? So when I read that, I identified with it, but I thought it's not the craft, but the craftsman that I want to save. 1 Thessalonians 4:9-12 says, now concerning brotherly love, you have no need of anyone to write to you. For you yourselves have been taught by God to love one another, and that indeed is what you are doing to all the brothers through Macedonia. That's what I was talking about, that independence. These people were taking the responsibility themselves to love and serve other people. But we urge you, brothers, to do this more and more, and to aspire to live quietly, and to mind your own affairs, and to work with your hands as we instructed you, so that you may walk properly before outsiders and be dependent on no one. There's an American independence too, which I see a bit of here, and I don't think that's entirely it. People always need each other, but the craftsman isn't helpless. He has the mind and the skills to do good things for himself and for others with the resources available around him. The last thing that Jesus told his disciples to do was to go and make disciples and teach them to obey all his commands. Oh wait, yeah, I think there was one other part of the book I wanted to read before that. Where was that part about? 458, back there again. There we go. So he says, how do we save this craft? He says, I'm so glad you asked. It's our duty as amateurs to pick up the mantle of the craft and woodworking from the professionals who have been carrying this heavy burden for us for generation after generation. It's our turn to preserve the design, joinery, and finishing skills that are now being transferred to CNC machinery. How can we do this? Part of this is done by sustaining the tool makers who make tools that actually function. Part of this is done by preserving the written woodworking knowledge about how to build stuff without computers or animation. But those two tasks above are the easy things to do. The hard part is the important part. We have to acquire, store, and redistribute the actual hand skills, but you can't deposit those in a book, a video, or a computer. There's only one place that hard-won hand skills can be stored and accessed by future generations. It's in your hands and your heart. By absorbing and practicing these skills, we can ensure that they will not be lost, for as long as we are willing to teach them freely to younger woodworkers. All right, so now on to Jesus' last thing he said. He told his disciples to go and make disciples and to teach them to obey all his commands, Matthew 28. And then Paul told Timothy later, the things which you have heard from me in the presence of many witnesses, entrust these to faithful men who will be able to teach others also. The idea of apprenticeship goes far beyond the school education we've settled for. And I want to train up craftsmen like Paul talked about in 1 Thessalonians, men who love the people around them and care for themselves and others. I want to make disciples of Jesus, who was himself a craftsman. Those tasks, difficult as they are, quoting now from page 459, are not all that I'm asking of you. Try this. Consider living more like an 18th century artisan and less like a 21st century mega consumer. During the last decade, my priorities have shifted to the point where now I buy things that are well made by skilled people who sell them for a fair price. I've declined to purchase cheap goods that are designed to be discarded. And whenever possible, I make exactly what I need instead of buying something that will suffice for now. For me, this behavior has resulted in my questioning the institutions that encourage wasteful consumption, particularly large corporations and the governments in service to them. I call this practical skepticism, but its more proper name is anarchism. So be it. Everything I read, I'm always connecting to what I've been reading in Scripture. It gets me fired up, hearing that. And I think, doesn't it light a fire under you? Don't you want to participate in a richer life where you earn and create things instead of just consuming whatever the world hands you? I'll take it a step further. Don't you know that nothing, and I mean nothing, in this world lasts? History has made it so clear that eventually everything will decay and be forgotten. And yet we move forward, undeterred, because we have hope. Something in us knows that what we do will last forever, that the way we work, the way we treat people, the things we say and believe have a ripple effect that goes on forever. Don't just live for today. Don't just live for this lifetime. Consider what eternity holds for you and make your decisions based on that. Spoiler alert, that's how I live my life. And that's what makes me a true anarchist. But for fun, we'll give you a quick little glimpse into our daily life and how we're sticking it to the man who just wants us to fall in line. All right. You ready for this?
I don't know.
We don't use birth control. Should I give them both barrels or just skip that?
They can ask if they need more information.
There you go. Feel free to ask questions. Cloth diapers. That's an unfun, good way to...
It looks really pretty in the ads, but it's not so pretty in real life. But
Yep.
It's really, really handy to have when you live this far out, and it feels good when there's no garbage man coming to take away your trash. When you can just wash those and not have them pile up.
Yeah. But that's just it, that it is good to live this far out. And not just out far away from people from our culture, but it's good to live this far out away from dependence on sewage systems and things like that. It's really nice to, when you run into a problem, you can solve it. All right, here we go. We reuse Ziploc bags for years. I remember somebody, it was just peripheral. We were like at a church potluck or something, and some lady was throwing away a Ziploc bag, and somebody else made a comment on it, and she's like, well, I'm not that kind of missionary, or I'm not that missionary, I can't remember. Anyways, we're that missionary. You
have to hold them up with water in them to see if they're dripping, to see what kind of thing you're going to store in them next.
Are you putting a liquid thing in it, or just like maybe some bread to keep it from going stale?
Yeah.
We wash all our dishes by hand. We always have. We never had a dishwasher, but
yeah.
I think that's a big deal to some people.
Our kids do a lot of it.
Yeah, mostly the kids do it. They start around age 4, about the same time they're ready to ride a bike. And they really don't break many dishes.
I probably break as many as they do.
Yeah, easily. If it's yellow, let it mellow. If it's brown, flush it down. Just one of those kind of TMI realities. That's ingrained in me. I'm a California boy. You don't waste water on just a little tinkle. Along the same lines, we do little half flushes. Like European toilets have that. For me, I just go halfway on the handle, just enough to clean it out, not a full gallons of water flush.
We're going into dry season here, so every drop of water goes a long way in this yard.
Yep, that well starts getting low.
I don't know if you can see it, but it's just the dust is starting to settle on all the leaves, and things don't grow as well, so every bit of water we save goes right into our trees and plants.
Yep. We use a solidaga. Sometimes. We still like toilet paper. We've got that ingrained in us. But solidaga is that translates to a prayer pot. And people wash their hands and stuff with it. And here they also use it as toilet paper. So water, the world's most...
Throw a picture in for you.
Water is the world's most renewable resource. So that saves on trees. We carry out all of our dish and shower water to plants. These basically all these trees around here get watered. Every time we wash dishes or take a shower, anything, that all goes into a bucket, and we take the buckets out and water trees and plants with them. We grow our own herbs. We're not super gardeny. The 11 kids thing.
I would love to be a good gardener, but every time I start growing something, a dog digs it up, a kid pulls it out, a chicken eats it, somebody overwaters it.
Yep, the tortoise knocks it over.
But we do have a good supply of basil and a few other things, and we keep trying. So
that's right. Yeah, and that's just it. Every time our kids eat a piece of fruit, they stick the seed in the ground somewhere, and the guavas are working. Passion fruit lasted for a few years. The lemons are happy, so we do what we can. We do our own haircuts. And with 13 heads in the family, you can just count that up. That's big money right
Jeff
there.
Jeff just gave me my first haircut in over a year. So
looks
nice.
Good. I sharpen my own straight razor to shave with. Now you can tell that that's not a big deal. I only shave once a week and just kind of trim up the edges here, but I like that. Instead of chucking a razor, I like being able to... anything that you can keep using by repairing. I really like that. We do all our own plumbing.
Not Jeff's favorite job.
It will really motivate you to save the water that you use. I do masonry work. I do stick welding and electrical repairs. Electrical is probably the one that
I think the dog's choking on something.
Oh no, he's just chained up. Doesn't want to be chained up. Okay. He's okay.
Okay.
Yeah, so I do a lot of my own repairs, and actually, a growing skill in my life is not doing so many things myself, but carefully passing them off to other capable people. That being said, there's a job back there that a guy said he was going to do a week ago, and I've talked to him like 3 times. Sooner or later, I'm just going to do it myself. But the welder, he got the job done before I even told him I really wanted him to do it. So the good side of that is I didn't have to pay for it. What else? We recycle all we can. So we do a lot of composting, anything that can compost. We save up all our metal and take it to... There's a guy that collects metal around here, and then when he's got enough, it brings a semi-truck in. But there's no organized system of recycling, but anytime we drink out of a drink bottle, we give that to the ladies who make dableni, which is like a sugary hibiscus drink, and they reuse those. So whatever we can, we do. And then whatever isn't recyclable or compostable, we take outside of town and burn it. There's not any other option. You could just dump it and let it decompose over time, but honestly, little boys will follow you out there, pick up all their favorite parts, and bring them back into town. So we burn it. And you can look at Heidi's video channel to see a video of us doing our trash stuff.
Trash burning day.
We don't drive our cars unless we're going really far, like 100 kilometers or more. We do bikes, and my oldest son that's at home has a motorcycle we use. My wife makes most of the soap that we use. Is that fair to say?
Lately, yeah, we've been using mostly that soap. We do buy shampoo still.
Yep.
We haven't made shampoo yet, but sometimes we just tell the little kids to wash their hair with a soap bar.
Yep.
Because otherwise they waste the shampoo.
The palm oil comes from the south of us, pretty local. The shea butter comes very local. Falls off the trees and the local people make it. And what else do you use in there?
Coconut oil.
Coconut oil.
Comes from Cote d'Ivoire.
That's further down by the coast, but still decently local. And then all of the good smells and sparklies come from America.
It's not much of that here.
Yeah,
this isn't a very sparkly, good-smelling life.
Yeah. Where was I? How long would you say it takes us to use up a roll of paper towels?
A month at least.
A month?
Paper towels?
Yeah. When's the last time you got out a new roll of paper towels?
If I'm making soap, because I don't have a dishwasher to clean things, if I have paper towels, I really like to wipe my things out with paper towels to help with cleaning.
Right, because if you get that soap taste in your food, man, it just Doesn't go away for a long time.
Well, I have separate dishes for soap making. I
Right,
try
you
to
do
keep
now,
it all
trial and
separate.
error.
But yeah, probably a couple months. But yeah,
I would say we don't use more than 2 rolls of paper towels a year.
yeah, it's kind of a novelty to have the paper
It's
towels,
definitely a novelty.
and they're kind of like stashed away in the kitchen. But yeah, we've got our dirty rags, and we've got our kitchen rags, and we've got our outside rags.
Yep.
Try and keep them
Wash 'em and reuse 'em.
separate for different things. Use a lot of rags that are washable.
We educate our own children. They're actually educating themselves right now, so we can make this video. Yep. Zach, who's 13, took the other 6
So
with
the
him.
baby's here
The
with
baby's
us.
still here with us. Yeah.
Hopefully sleeping.
Yep. And then our 3 oldest are one's in America working, and 2 are at boarding school.
That's 11 total, in case you don't know us.
Yeah. I made my own workbench with hand tools, which arguably the workbench is the most important tool for making things.
Do you know how to link videos? You should do that YouTube thing. We'll link it up here.
But link in the description. No, I can figure it out. I'm a smart guy like that. I'm a craftsman. I greet my neighbors, all of them. You know.
4 here right now.
Yeah, these are, good kids. I speak a language that Google doesn't know.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, right? You can't search in Bambara, and you
yeah.
can't translate into Bambara. Yeah, we got our own independent thing. And I teach neglected children in poverty to read. And man,
That's not easy.
it's not easy. It's not easy, and I won't even claim a whole lot of progress because it's not a literate society. People don't communicate things to each other in writing. They don't give their kids lists. Their kids memorize everything that they want them to get in town. So it's a work in progress, but it makes things like this accessible, and the simple fact that God gave us a book puts reading pretty high on the priority list. So I think that teaching kids to read is probably my greatest work of anarchy, given that sort of independence. We start in their own language. We start in Bambara, then French, and So there you have it. Now this, I'll throw in a caveat book review. I haven't even finished this one yet. Thanks, Mom. This is a book called Hands Employed Aright. The Furniture Making of Jonathan Fisher, 1768 to 1847 by Joshua Klein. Tons of pictures and stuff. And this is a dude who did it. You know, he really reminds me of myself to some degree. He had, he had 9 kids or something. And he was a pastor.
I missed that part.
Yeah. And he did woodworking, but not as some master craftsman. He had other goals in mind, you know. He paid debts, he served people, and everything he did was with the goal of making use of the time on earth that God had given him. So that's a good read. Very, very much from a woodworking perspective. It also has the flavor of kind of a journal, since this man kept meticulous journals for most of his life, in his own handwriting that he made up, shorthand that somebody had to translate and figure out. Anyways, interesting read. I'd recommend both books.
Lots of nice pictures in that one. Actually,
Yeah.
they both have some pictures. The other one does too.
Yep.
Hand-drawn stuff.
All right. Love you, bro.
Thanks.